Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody's doing all right. My name is Steve Rosenberg, and for those of you that I don't know or have not yet met, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia. This is the fourth week of our response to the COVID-19 crisis, and this will be our last community call before Passover. We know that celebrating and observing the holiday while social distancing will be a challenge. So on this call, we'll be hosting an impressive group of people who will provide new, creative ideas to help you plan your celebrations. As an example, I have my Haggadah with me because I had to scan it in so that I could send it to everybody that will be participating with us and my family this week. We'll also provide you with another update on the Jewish Federation's Emergency Campaign Fund as we continue to allocate critical resources to our partner organizations who are doing unbelievably incredible work supporting the most vulnerable in our community. These past several weeks have been extremely difficult for our community and for all of you, but they have also brought out the best in us. I've been amazed to see the outpouring of generous support from our donors and the passion of our volunteers. We don't know what the next few weeks will hold for us, but from what I've seen from leaders across our community, I am confident we will continue to both survive and thrive. I always like to end my introduction with an inspiring quote. As we approach Passover, I'm reminded of one by Morris Joseph. Passover affirms the great truth that liberty is the inalienable right of every human being. Let us all be sure to remember this truth, even during this period of isolation and confinement. I'd like to now introduce Rabbi Beth Kalish from Beth David Reformed Congregation. Rabbi?
Hi there. Thanks so much, Steve. And I want to thank everyone at Jewish Federation and everyone in the community who is on this call for everything that all of you are doing. This is such an unbelievably painful time, but I am also really inspired by all the different ways that our community is reaching out to help each other and to support each other. I want to share a little bit of Torah for you, thinking ahead to the Passover Seder, and think about a moment of the Passover Seder that feels especially important to me in the Seder this year, in this year of brokenness, because that's what we do with the matzah at the Seder. We take 3 matzot, and the one in the middle we take in the part of the Seder that's known as yachatz, and we hold it up and we break it into 2 pieces. And this is a year where the brokenness is all around us, or maybe we're inside, and the brokenness is outside our doors, and the brokenness is inside of us as well. So I want to share 3 teachings that I think yachatz has to offer us in this broken world. The first one is that when we hold up the matzah that we're going to break, we say, halach ma'anya, this is the bread of affliction. It's usually translated. You could also translate it as this is the bread of our poverty. But the irony of the matzah is that it is both the bread of our affliction and also the bread of our freedom. Passover on our stomachs and on our soul is a symbol both of what was so difficult and also of what is possible and what lies ahead. And I think that's true for all of us at our Seder tables this year too. This will not be a Seder or a Passover like any before. And I know that for a lot of families and for a lot of people, whether you're having Seder by yourself or just not with the same configuration of people you wish you were, there's real pain in this year's Passover. But I think it's worth remembering that this will also be the way in which we protect ourselves and our families and our wider community during this time when all of us are so threatened by illness. What will make this Passover feel broken is also what will allow this Passover to keep all of us safe and for all of us to celebrate this holiday in safety. Second lesson from yachatz is that when you break that piece of matzah, there are crumbs everywhere. The Passover Seder is not meant to be neat, and a Seder table is never free of any kind of mess. So if you feel like there are crumbs all over your life these days, if the brokenness of this world has made your floors and your table and everything else in your life a mess, then you're right in the Passover spirit. This is how Yachas is supposed to be. And despite everything that some people might be posting online of new productivity and the best Seder ever this year, I just encourage you to embrace the crumbs and the messiness. This year doesn't have to be perfect because brokenness never is. And the third lesson from Yachas is that you break it, and it's the bigger piece that is saved and hidden away for the afikomen, the kids, the children, maybe the children at heart in your family will search for it after. And it's the bigger piece that the children will find. And what I think is important is that although the matzah that we break is broken, the afikomen itself is not broken. When the children find the afikomen is whole as itself. And I think it's important to remember that this year there is brokenness embedded into the Seder, and we can't fix it. There is pain and suffering going on right now that we can't fix, but that does not mean that what we do with this year and the way that we make meaning, the way that we act, I hope with courage, with compassion, and with wisdom, that will allow the next generation, that will allow our children to make wholeness out of what is broken this year. So may you embrace the crumbs. May you keep everybody safe, even though it is a bit of affliction for this year. And may we keep faith together that there will be wholeness and sweetness ahead. Happy Passover.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you so much. Thank you for your inspiring words. My name is Sarah Solomon, and I work at the Jewish Federation.
Hi, everybody. Is it okay?
Devorah, we are going to just hang on for a few minutes, okay, until the end. Thank you. So again, Rabbi, thank you for your inspiring words. And I really can relate to all you said about the broken matzah. Our world certainly feels broken right now, but I will tell you, as a part of this Jewish community, I am really inspired by how we've all come together. And I have seen that in regards to certainly the money that has come in, which I'm here to report on today, that is going right back out into our community. So thank you. So as I said, my name is Sarah Solomon. I work on our major gift team at Jewish Federation, and I am here today to give a quick update on all that the community has done together. So as we mentioned on the call last week, the Emergency Response Committee, which is being chaired by our volunteer, Holly Nelson, immediately mobilized when this crisis started in our community a few weeks ago. And we launched the COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund for critical food insecurity and other vulnerable needs in our community. And in just the very, very short time we have launched this campaign, we have raised more than $800,000, which I'm really proud to be a part of. And everyone on this call and in this community should be very proud of that. Any contribution anyone has made has gone so far, and we are so, so grateful. As I mentioned last week, and it continues this week, the money that is coming in goes right back out. 100% of this donation is going right back out to people who need it most. And as of today, we've allocated money to really important programs. To name a few, Klein Life's meal delivery program for older adults, which is providing 9,000 kosher meals prepared for March and April. We have allocated money to Jewish Family and Children's Services to provide grants for their families that receive basic needs such as rent, mortgage, utility payments. We have supported the Mitzvah Food Program, who have recently become, of course, there are people who have been and who have recently become food insecure, as well as to help offset the cost of food and supplies. And they always have an increasing client base before this crisis even happened. So of course, you know, all the assistance continues to be needed. This week, we were able to support Abramson Senior Care to provide a month's worth of food supplies for their older adults. The Jewish Relief Agency to maintain a safe and healthy work environment for ongoing food distribution. I know I certainly have been there many times, and their operation relies heavily on that, so we were really proud to support that. We also have supported the Judith Creed Horizons for Achieving Independence, the JHI, as many of you know it, program to provide food supplies to their adult clients with developmental disabilities. And we have also provided the Philly Friendship Circle, a grant to help their families of children with disabilities to pay for their basic needs as well, food, rent, utilities, support staff. The Emergency Response Committee is, I would say, meeting daily, really multiple times a day via Zoom to review proposals for support, and we will continue to share all of the updates and all of the grants that are being made each and every week. In addition to direct financial support to fund this important work, Federation is also trying to work and help in convening however we can. We are providing safe volunteer opportunities, which I'll talk about in a minute, for anyone that's looking for hands-on ways to help that's comfortable. Of course, webinars for community leaders like today for the community. On Fridays, we've been talking with agency heads, synagogue heads, different faith leaders, and really here to support the entire community however we can. An important update for today for you to know that our Jewish Federation in Greater Philadelphia, in partnership with the Jewish Federations of North America, we are working right now to develop resources and communications to ensure that all of our partner agencies and synagogues, all Jewish organizations, have access to the federal relief funds available that came out this week through the SBA Payroll Protection Plan. There are other pieces of new legislation, and we are working to put all that information out. If you or your organization need resources or help with specialists in this area, let us know. We are absolutely here to help you. So in addition to raising money and giving it out, of course, as I mentioned, we continue to need volunteers. Specifically, the Mitzvah Food Pantry will continue to practice social distancing with a knock, drop, and go program. We will put in the chat box the link, jewishphilly.org/COVID-19. If you are comfortable and willing to do that, that is critical. We are also delivering frozen pre-packaged meals for Klein Life while practicing social distancing. Again, we'll put up the contact for that with John Escape. And really what is making a huge impact and continues to be needed is our volunteer over the phone program. So we have set up a virtual volunteer program that you can make a friendly phone call to an older adult. It could be once a week or twice a week. And, you know, this time, even if you're surrounded by people, it can be lonely, and people that are not surrounded by people, it is even more lonely. And we hope that anyone that has the time will especially volunteer to make those important phone calls. So I really am here today to give you that update on all that's been done, to thank you. The breadth of this community is just shining, unfortunately, in this situation, and we're grateful for everything. And I look forward to continuing to report to all of you. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Lauren Applebaum. Lauren is the Educational Director of DELET, Day School Teachers for a New Generation. This is based at HUCJIR's Skirball campus in Los Angeles. Dr. Applebaum is co-director of Project Orly, Research and Leadership for Israel Education, a project that combines cohort-based professional development and field-building research in Israel education. She is an alumni of the Harvard Graduate School of Education and Williams College, and earned her doctorate in education from the Jewish Theological Seminary. I am going to ask Dr. Lauren to speak, and then at the end, we will open up the chat for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for that really generous introduction. And I'm so happy to be joining you in Philadelphia, where many people that I love live, from Los Angeles. I think the most important things about me, actually, even though that, again, introduction was so generous, are really that I love to lead Seder. I think about Seder as an educator. And even though I wish, like all of us, I was spending less time on Zoom these days, it's a way that I've gotten to teach both adults and children in past years, past the last 2 weeks. We've all had a crash course. And so I want to help everybody, help all of us think a little bit about some of the challenges and the opportunities of Seder this year, maybe with Zoom, maybe without Zoom. But as Rabbi Beth people say, it's all a little messy. this year. And so I will also embrace the crumbs, and I want to invite you to do that with me too. So I'm going to share my screen, hopefully real quick. Starting from the beginning instead of the end. Okay, so when I was asked to do this, they asked me originally to think about 3 questions, and I, of course, couldn't help but take the opportunity to add the 4th. We were going to think a little bit together today about how to meet the needs of the group that will gather virtually or otherwise this year for your Seder. And that might mean young families are involved, young kids. It might mean it's just, and that may be usual for you, or it might be unusual. It may be only adult at your Seder, which may be, again, the way that it has happened in the last several years, or completely new. Either of those settings, we might have people joining us through a screen or not. And for many of us, for one reason or another, the Seder will be a smaller group of those just in our house. And again, that might involve adults or kids. So we want to think about, when we think about it like educators, we call it thinking about our learners, but as Seder leaders, we're thinking about our guests, whoever they are. Again, some of those Seders are going to be virtual. And like everything else, Sarah, I agree that the Jewish community among all communities has had an extraordinary response, almost a flood of resources in this case that are heading both to vulnerable populations and also to those of us who are trying to think about how to celebrate and come together. That amazing pile of resources can be a little much. And so I want to think a little bit about how to think about those resources and make some decisions about the Seder. And the 4th question that I asked, which we're going to think about first, because I think this is actually the key to Seder every year, but even more particularly this year, is what feels important to express through this ritual? What's the thing that we want for ourselves most this year in Seder? And there are a couple of options. I'm going to just suggest a few that might occur to me, and people, when we get a chance to answer questions and talk, we might get to propose some other ones and think about those too. So here are a couple of choices that people might think feels most important to them. It may feel most important this year to make Seder feel relevant. We're literally in the middle of a plague. And so it feels, in many years, people want to sort of bring their own current story, the story of the world or in our lives, into the Seder story. And this year, for some people, that feels even more pressing. So it may be that as you think about how are we going to do Seder, the thing most important is making it relevant. It may be, though, on the other hand, that actually what feels most important is to make it familiar, to think about the things that we cherish and really love about Seder, and think about, even if they have to happen a little bit differently, it feels like we want that touchstone, that continuity, to make that happen again. It may also feel most important to make things intellectually stimulating for us at whatever age our participants are, to really have it be something that's engaging for the mind and the heart. It may be that for different parts of the Seder, you want to make different choices there, right? You might want to have some relevant and some familiar, some stimulating and some sort of comfort of routine. But I want to urge all of us to think that in any one moment in the Seder, in any one step, you can't do all of it. You can only do, at most, I would say, one really well of any of these pieces. The second piece to mix in is the needs of the group. So again, depending on whether there are children or adults, it's a large Seder in multiple spaces or one around our table or on our couch. We have to think about what's most important and how will that work for the people I'm with. So here's an example. If I'm thinking about the 4 questions, I might pick from my goals, I might pick making it familiar. If my group is, in this particular case, families with young children, so if there are young children involved, here are some ways that I might think about it. The challenge comes when there are young children in a Seder for 4 questions, and this is true any year. And
Dr. Lauren, I'm sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 minute. It looks like we're just looking at your last slide. If we could take a minute to try and get to your presentation, it's on the final thoughts page.
Oh. I can I will certainly share it. Now I can see that the people are asking for the presentation, and of course I will share them. Is it easier if I just at this point stop it and just speak rather than try to, I know you are on a tight time schedule. I'm happy to just talk a little bit about it and share the slides later.
I just wanted to let you know. Thank you. And
no, thank you for telling me. Yeah, I was sharing. I see people giving me so much helpful technical support, which I appreciate. And we'll go low tech. We're embracing the crumbs here again. The 4 questions can be really intimidating and hard for youngest kids, even if it's just in person and there aren't cameras in their face, right? Stage fright or having it difficult to remember how to, what all the pieces are. And so if what I want is that familiar feeling of kids doing the questions, I might queue up a recording. There are lots and lots and some resources that I can link and allow kids to sing along. It may be that we want to take advantage again of the technology if we're using it and lean in and let kids actually record the 4 questions ahead of time. So let them, some other point, you can do it with costumes, you can do it in the bubble bath, and bring together the questions ahead and then play them for the group. If there are multiple cousins who might want to share it, I think at this point, many people have experienced the challenge of singing live virtually as a group. They can each record a question and play or decide who's going to go in each turn. It gives an advantage. It's a one way of leaning into the technology to say something that's hard anyway, we can actually make a little bit easier if we're using technology this year. If, on the other hand, my goal was for the 4 questions to make them intellectually stimulating, that's what I'm really wanting from my Seder this year or in this particular moment. And to mix things up, let's say there's only adults that are going to be at my Seder for the most part. I might think about other ways to experiment with those 4 questions, because the 4 questions, like a lot of elements that are designed for children in the Seder, if it's only adults, it's really important to make sure there's a way that fits the people in the room or in the Zoom room, so that it doesn't feel sarcastic or silly, right? That it feels like people can really engage in the idea of questions. One option is, and I can link to this resource later, is one of my colleagues at HUC, Dr. Sarah Benor, has put together the Jewish Languages Project. And she has resources to do the 4 questions, not only in Hebrew or English or Yiddish, but also in Geo-Greek and all sorts of other historic Jewish languages, some of which are still spoken, but some of which can only reside in ritual at this point. I'll share that resource for folks that might want to explore that. Another option is to lean into the idea of asking questions and ask participants to send their own 4 questions to the Seder leader ahead of time, or just pause in the moment, and then pair people up to ask them and answer them to each other. In both of those cases, and in all of those cases, it's really important that the Seder host, if that's one person or multiple people, takes a really active role in facilitating it. Again, that's actually true for every Seder. All of the time. It's even more true when you're trying to juggle this on a screen or with multiple aspects. So rather than say, in the moment, say, well, what language should we use? Should we do it in this? That looks kind of fun. Either delegate someone or take charge and decide ahead of time, this is the way we're going to do it. Or we're going to ask the questions, and then we're either going to mute our cameras and just discuss them in our own rooms, in our own houses, or those who have learned how to use breakout rooms in Zoom, if you're using Zoom, you can say, we're going to pair people up and discuss that question and then come back together. So a little bit of thought, it doesn't have to be fancy, but a little bit of thought ahead of time will help you think about, again, what is it that I want? Do I want it to feel like a chance for intellectual questioning? Match it to that. Do I want it to feel familiar? I'll think about where is a way for me to pull up those 4 questions so a child can sing along ahead of time. Let me give one more example and then 2 more examples, and then we can open it up to questions. Another example might be the afikomen, which we already heard a little bit about, the crumbs and the brokenness which are made whole. If my goal is for it to be familiar, right? If I want to sort of have that same feeling of afikomen that we often have, and I have young children, I might ask a family member or a friend who often comes to our house but won't be in our house this year to help hide the afikomen ahead of time. So I will say that in our house, when I get to celebrate Seder with my brother, he is a fantastic afikomen hider. And so we might ahead of time earlier in the day, do a quick FaceTime call with him with no children in the room and ask him to direct us to hide the afikoman so that he still gets to do that for our kids. And then we'll tell them later that it was him who hid it for them. That can be done, again, in the moment or ahead of time with somebody, if that's a tradition that's really beloved, but the person who's the hider isn't in your house this year. If you are hoping for the goal of intellectual engagement in your family with young kids, you might make a scavenger hunt. And there are lots of resources of these online that we can link as well for people to think about ways that they can lead people on a series of clues all over the house to find the afikoman. It might be different than you've done it before. If you usually have 50 people in your house, that might not be feasible, but with a smaller group, it might be really fun this year. And my last suggestion is, again, for adults, because I know that for some people, what they'll be missing is children at their Seder this year. And for this one, I was thinking about the Hillel sandwich, where we bring together sort of the bitter and the sweet, or two different symbolic foods that represent the meal. It might be that you ask adults, either on Zoom or in person, to think about two symbolic foods that they think represent that memory, capture that essence this year. You might even allow people to go raid the fridge in the middle of the Seder and see what two foods they might also want to combine in addition to the traditional ones, or on the side for a little extra appetizer, to think about how food can be symbolic, representing this moment in addition to all of the ones that we're used to. So again, I will share those links after. Someone from Federation can help me share both the resources that I'm talking about and the slides that we couldn't see very well. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you so much, Lauren. I'm gonna give a minute for some questions to come into the chat. And I really just wanna thank you as they come in to say thank you. And you know, I think a lot of us, myself included, are hosting our own Seders this year as opposed to attending, and definitely a little nervous about that and need somewhere to focus a lot of different nervous energy. So these are all great tips and tricks to do that. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. I do think, especially for those who are in the frame of doing it for the first time, that it's helpful to, again, start where I began, which is to say, like, what feels like the most important thing? And that may just be one thing. Right? If actually what you love, it doesn't need to be fancy. If what you love, and part of what Seder means for you is people go around the room and read from the Haggadah, there is no need to say, instead, we're going to do a 3-ring circus this year. Just decide ahead of time, I'm going to, like Steve, make sure everyone has something scanned or on the screen they can read, and just take turns muting and reading out loud. There is no reason to add an extra level of complexity on it unless that's what feels meaningful.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I think a lot of our questions are asking for your resources, Lauren. So
I'm so happy. As soon as we get off, I'm happy to send those out.
We are going to send out those links that you said. And here we go. Sorry, I have one question here. So the question is, first one, I'm doing myself. I live in a multi-faith family, and since I can't go out this year, I'm doing it for myself. My parents agreed, so they will be doing this for the first time ever, but I'm a bit nervous. Any advice?
That's such a beautiful question. I love the image of that stretch that your parents, it sounds like from that read of that question that the parents of the person asking the question are the ones who are not part of the Jewish community, but are out of love and family going to participate. And I would say the same question applies. What feels most important to, I think, is it Jessica? I can't tell if in the chat that's the name of the person who asked it, or someone. So Jessica, I would say that thinking of that for you, from Seders that you have attended in the past, is there a particular ritual, a particular part of it that has felt most important to you that you want to share? And think about it just like the Seder itself is a chance to share and teach. That is the entire meaning behind it. Think about just sharing one or two of the rituals. When it gets to the Magid part, the long, sort of complex, multi-layered part that where we tell the story, you could also put the Haggadah down and tell the story in any other way. If technology is going to feel okay at your Seder, there are some resources we can also share that you could sort of watch together and engage all together, so it doesn't feel like if you're the only person, and this would go for anybody not a multi-faith house, but just where there's maybe one person in the family who holds all the knowledge, most of it, you can sort of make sure that you can take turns between being the only one responsible and all learning together. And one way to do that is either to print resources ahead of time or watch them together, so that you're not the only person holding that. But again, just to think about, if I were to identify one or two of these rituals that I really want to share, how might we do it together?
Great, thank you. And we have to move on, but we have one more question. I'm going to ask you for a quick answer, Lauren, which is, any tips for keeping the group together when we all have different versions of a Haggadah?
Yes, I would say that a craft project for kid or adult, or just print it, is to write out the 15 steps or the 8 steps or the 3 steps or however many steps your Seder will have. Write them out on a little chart, or post them up, and then tell everybody, this is the next one we're at. Because almost any Haggadah will say, now we're at Karpas. It'll have a table of contents or on the bottom. So you can say to everybody, we are on Karpas, find the page that's Karpas, and sort of run down the list so that everybody can see where they are.
Great, thank you so much.
It is my pleasure.
Yeah, and to those that still have a few questions, again, we will be putting all of these resources up. We will share Dr. Applebaum's presentation and her
and I'm happy to answer other questions too if you want to send them to me.
That would be great. Thank you so much. I just wanted to add that on Jewish Federation's website, jewishphilly.org/Passover-2020-resources, we'll put that in the chat. This is a great portion of our website where you can all find a list of grocery stores that we believe to have significant Passover sections, a list of virtual seders you can join, activities for your kids. I know I will be there later checking it out and getting ready to print away. So thank you, and please check that out. I am now thrilled to introduce Devorah Selber. I'm going to ask Devorah to unmute her computer. Devorah is going to give us a cooking demonstration. She is a member of the mainline cook of the Israeli American Council and a longtime Philadelphia resident. I believe I went to high school with your kids. So I am especially glad to welcome you. And she's going to give us a demonstration on how to make Sephardic charoset. I'm going to hand it over to you, Devorah. Thanks.
Okay, hold on. Let me see how we open the presenter part. Okay, I guess. Hi. Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with you today, and my pleasure to introduce you to a Sephardic style charoset. I wanted you to see what are the ingredients, and majhul dates. I love them because they are nice and fluffy and very fresh usually. The other things is walnut. Any walnut will do the job. The ingredients that we add is cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg, silan, which is also an ingredient that comes from the dates, and it's from Eretz Israel, and cloves, just a little touch of it. And I usually also add some orange blossom, but you can also just grind a lemon or an orange with it, and I think it will do the job. Then we can start. I did cut down the dates and around a cup, and just put it into the food processor, and then I put the walnuts. I grinded them a little bit ahead of time, and then I just add the ingredients, a little bit of the silan to just add some more taste to it. You can also add honey if you want it. A little bit of cinnamon. the cinnamon around a teaspoon for the amount that I put in. I think I went with 1 cup, and a little bit of the nutmeg, around 1 little spoon. I do add some juice to it, or wine or sweet wine, and just a little bit. And then I will grind it. Right, in just 1 second. I usually will have a lot more of it through the whole holiday, because my kids loved it through the whole holiday. We use it as a spread for the matzah, and it's a healthy way of adding some spread to it. But for the mitzvah, of the charoset, you will see that it is beautiful. And here it is, ready to go, and we have a beautiful charoset. If anybody has questions, I will pull it out and just show you how it looks. I still have this. You can see it's look like a mortar, and this is exactly what we are trying to present, something that will remind us. Tastes wonderful, and it's a very healthy charoset. Then this is a part of the charoset. I wanted you to know that the tradition, the Sephardic tradition, is really using a lot more the fruit of the earth. I mean, the fruit from the seven, I mean, from much more the nuts, not the apples. And when I came to this country 35 years ago, it was like, what do you mean charoset with an apple? Just not something that worked out for me so much. Then we definitely, this is a tradition that we add in our home, and it's a wonderful thing. The other things I wanted you to know, as you can see here, a beautiful Megillah, Haggadah, and it is in Haggadah, Sephardic Haggadah from the 14th century. One of my clients gave it to me because he said I probably will be using it a lot more than somebody else. And I was in Manchester, where it is, where it's right now, the original is stored in Manchester, England, and in the museums and in the university. And a couple of years ago, I had the pleasure of going there and seeing it, and it was the most exciting things. But it is a beautiful, beautiful Haggadah, and I'm hoping that this year I will be able to read from it to my family through Zoom and try to introduce it a lot more to the family. Wow. Sorry. The other things that, since I am married to an Ashkenazi, I had to incorporate some of their tradition. Then you're all very familiar with Mrs. Adler gefilte fish. I always feel that it's too pale and too uninviting. And my mother-in-law, Steve's mom, taught me how to make it a little bit more interesting. Then you can see that we sauteed onion, really browned them, sauteed them really well, together with the carrots and spices. Some of the spices that I used is the turmeric, a little bit of cumin, a little bit of paprika, and a little bit of white pepper. and salt a little, and of course no sugar, it have enough sugar. And this is how I doctored it, and it tastes beautiful and tastes really nice, and it's also very appealing to the eyes. Then just I thought that this is something that another tradition that we all use, and it's a nice way to give it an upgrade, or to give it a doctoring a little bit of the gefilte fish. The Sephardic tradition is that just after Purim, usually we get into this unbelievable cleaning of the whole entire house. My mother really believed that we had to go through the house 7 times before it was kosher enough for Passover. Then this year, I usually don't do it as bad, but this year we found ourselves with a quarantine, with the corona, unfortunately. And we found ourselves, my husband and me, really giving it a cleanup. I said, if corona will stop by our home, the chlorine will kick her out. And we definitely feel that the house is very clean, because we just don't have anything else to do in life but staying home. But the tradition is really going through every corner of the house, making sure everything is clean, making sure all the bread is out. And in our home, we change the dishes, we change the whole entire operation of the kitchen. Which is not something that everybody do, but in my home, I try to keep with the traditions that I grew up with, and it's a lot harder, but it's a nice tradition, and it's spring cleaning in its best. The other wonderful traditions that the Sephardic have in their seder is that I mean, the table is a beautiful table. The food that we cook for Passover is really a lamb with the fruit, with prunes, and it's a lot sweeter, a lot more green, a lot more. I mean, meatballs with karpas, with celery. They really kept a lot more with the green, with the earth, with ingredients that are more earthy, more springy, more bringing the spring into your home. Then the artichoke, the beautiful artichoke hearts. I mean, we definitely pick them up really nice and fresh, and they're usually part of our tradition. The Sephardic tradition is also allowing legumes. Then we do have the fava beans, the beans. I know the Ashkenazi tradition is not allowing it, but the beans family in our tradition is something that we definitely use. Then one of the things that the soup that my mother used to make with the fava beans and the meat and the celery and the scallions, fresh onions. I mean, just everything was very green and very fresh. And
Devorah, thank you. We have to start to wrap this up, but we have one quick question. Where can somebody get date syrup?
Actually, Acme in Balakin would have it, and Giant have it also.
Well, thank you very much. That was fantastic. Forget about social distancing. I'm coming to your house at 6 o'clock for dinner, so get everybody out. Great
Sound
job.
good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And have a happy Passover, everybody. And try to find the best we can find out of this kind of time, and be with your family and hug, and not hug, love everybody. Hopefully we all have a great Passover and be healthy.
Well said. Thank you. We want to thank all of our speakers, Rabbi Beth Kalish, Dr. Lauren Applebaum, Sarah Solomon, of course, Devorah Silber. So what's next? How can you help us, help you, and help the community? Continue to volunteer. Go to our website, jewishphilly.org/COVID-19. Has all of the resources. Sarah spoke about knock, drop, and go. As I said a couple of weeks ago, great way to continue to exercise. Knock really hard, drop, and go. Run really fast. Great exercise. Knock, drop, and go. Donate. We continue to appreciate and value all of your wonderful, generous donations. No donation is too small, and all the money is being sent right out into the community. 100% of your donations go back out into the community. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We continue to put up great content from our partners, from all of the various agencies, from synagogues, anything that we have that we see of value, we put out there. Sarah mentioned the Paycheck Protection Program. We are intimately involved and working closely with all of our agency partners. Anybody that needs help, applications open tomorrow morning. If you need assistance, the best website out there is Jewish Federation of North America, JFNA's website, jewishtogether.org. That's jewishtogether.org. You can go to our website and we have a link to that website. Very important legislation that will help a lot of agencies with funding to help payroll. Israel. We always try to talk about Israel. If you want great Israel information, go to the Jewish Agency's website, go to the Israeli American Council website, go to our website. A lot of really great, important work being done in Israel, and we continue to monitor what's going on there. Next week is Passover. As you've heard, this was what the theme was about. We wish you all a very, very happy Passover, however you do it, by Zoom. Celebrate in your own way, as Devorah just said. A very Hag Sameach to all of you. Most importantly, it is now 9 o'clock almost in Israel at the end of their work week, whatever their work week looks like. They are approaching Shabbat. Shabbat starts here tomorrow, a very important day of rest and solitude for all of us. So we always want to be the first to wish you a Shabbat Shalom and a restful and peaceful and healthy weekend. Thank you all very much. Have a great day.